Welcome to Life is Good. I'm Heather McHugh, your ever-loving hostess, and you'll never guess who we've got on today. Oh.
All the day long, hopping and a bopping and a singing his song. All the little birds on Jaybird Street love to hear the robin go tweet, tweet, tweet. Rockin' Robin, tweet, tweet, tweet. Rockin' Robin, tweet.
If you've got anything to do with memory of the protest movements of the 60s, or if you've got anything to feel about what's going on today politically with our country, with ICE, and with people being taken off our streets because they're either minority or just don't fit in according to certain guidelines, we have a songwriter who's performed in Newport, Vermont, but all over the country. He's a wonderful young man, and Rick Ufford Chase was the one who brought him to my attention by bringing him to Newport. His name is Matt Black. On YouTube, he's known as Matt Black, and we'll give you all that contact information for his music. But let's go. Hi, Matthew. Matt, how are you?
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, my pleasure. Your music was incredible. It moved me as much as the music of the 60s moved America. You're not protesting a war, you're protesting the situation we're in with our democracy right now and the constitutional chipping away. So, not asking you to list lyrics, tell me where that originated and how you became who you are.
Oh my, well, I'm honored already that you put me in that category with some of the great protest songs of the 60s. They're certainly an influence of mine. I think of myself first as a songwriter and not necessarily a protester or activist, but being involved or adjacent to activist movements for a lot of my life, and just to be a songwriter living in these times, it's hard. If you're gonna be honest as an artist about what you see, what you feel, what is affecting you, it's hard to avoid in these times the topics of what is going on in the world. It doesn't. I think art is inherently political, but you don't have to try very hard to be political.
It's so funny that you should say that, because I am an artist, and my paintings are no longer beautiful bucolic scenes with happy individuals prancing through the pictures and standing on rooftops. There's always an element of my political stand within every picture, because I don't have time to miss this opportunity. I can't spend 50 hours on a painting and then just have it reminds someone of their youth.
Yeah.
So your songs are powerful. I was jumping out of a seat when you were singing, and Kelby, my wonderful post-production person, will edit some of your music, weave it through the show. So anybody watching, hang on, listen to some of these lyrics. Incredible. You're a young man, so this is your first foray into protest movement, I would think.
I'm not that young. I'm 47.
You're young.
and it feels less young every day. Yeah, but I really think, first foray. So my story is that I've been writing songs since I was a teenager, but with a great deal of variety throughout my life of how much I was trying to make it any kind of profession or share my music out into the world. And about 3 years ago, I decided I was ready for a change, and so I quit my day job. I worked in IT.
What was it?
I was an IT guy I was an IT guy for nonprofits, which is actually, you mentioned Rick Ufford Chase. That's how Rick and I are initially connected.
Okay.
Through some of the church world and some of the nonprofits that he was working with. But I thought 3 years ago, it's like, well, what would happen if instead of, hiring out my labor for 40 hours a week, what would happen if I put those 40 hours a week towards my own music and putting my music out into the world and booking shows and things like that. And so that's what I've been doing for the past 3 years. And so the whole milieu of how I write has usually, I came to this just as a person who writes songs sometimes, not as somebody thinking like a professional musician, I guess.
Are you thinking more like a professional musician now? Because you certainly are fabulous.
A little bit, but the one decision I made for like why I think I am a little more inclined towards writing directly about issues that people will say are political, or maybe social issues might be a better way of talking about it. I did make an intentional decision years ago. It must have been about 8 years ago or so. I forget exactly when. There's a great poet who died recently named Andrea Gibson, and they posted on social media about they had some falling out. They had posted a more, well, it wasn't even, I don't even think it was necessarily in response to their work. There was some kind of kerfuffle on their Facebook page where people, some of their fans who were on the Facebook page actually came out and said some things that were racist. And their response to that incident, which is all too common online, was to say, if I have not been clear in my art thus far about where I stand on these issues of race, that's my fault as an artist. And I want to now be more clear about that.
Okay.
Both as I am as a public persona, but also in my art. Like, and there was this, and it struck me, even though I was nowhere near famous, barely had a Facebook page, didn't have anybody kerfuffling in any space I was a part of, like, even though I was extremely unknown at the time, I thought maybe I need to go on the record earlier. So people, if I ever do get more notoriety, that people know where I'm coming from, and it's right there to start with. And so that gave me a little bit more boldness than maybe I would have had otherwise.
Do you have a mission statement per se, or just a theme song, a theme of music?
No, I mean, if there's anything, it came accidentally. The song, the first song on my latest album is called "Everything Is Terrible and No One Is Okay."
I remember that. That's a great song. Oh,
It's,
ladies and gentlemen, you'll probably hear it now in this show.
Hope you like it. This is "Everything Is Terrible and No One Is Okay." I don't know how we're gonna do it, but love is real and we can prove it. You are not alone. There's too much and we can't bear it. Does it get lighter if we share it? You are not alone. If the world is gonna end, treat a stranger as a friend. Face the danger holding hands. Sing a song, join the dance. Nothing's fair, nothing's normal here among these foolish mortals, and you are not alone. I don't know how we're gonna do it, but love is real, we can prove it.
It's a much more remarkable song than a remarkably more positive song than the title suggests. And what happened was I found the title first. It's actually very similar to something somebody said on the internet. And I thought, I love this title. I want to write a song about this title. What's the song? And my thought process was, with it does feel like everything is terrible all the time. And at the time, the terrible thing that I was thinking of was during the height of COVID, which was a different terrible than we're dealing with now, in many of its characteristics. But it feels like ever since then, it's just been worse and worse. And to be a human who pays attention to the news.
It's always darkest before the dawn, my dear.
I guess. I hope
And
so.
we haven't reached the darkest part yet. My cousins were here the other week, Ronnie et Francine, and de Quebec, and the first Canadian visitors I've had since, he who shall not be named suggested Canada become the 51st state. Canada went on a little bit of a boycott of the U.S., and most of us who live on the border have lost a tremendous amount of income. But we're all saying that we understand. You have to stand on your own against what we are now facing here. And my cousin, Ronnie, asked me, do you think there will be something worse to end this? What will end this? And I just looked at him and I said, I don't know what the end game will be to end this downward spiral. It's not like we can get a stick and stick it in the spokes of a spinning wheel without violence. And I'm a nonviolent person, but I'm standing back saying, let the chips fall where they may, because I don't know how we're going to oust this guy. I don't know whether there's going to be another election.
Yeah, it's the term unprecedented has already become so cliche, right? We've been seeing every week there's something new that's never happened before, and we don't have a roadmap for it.
He's building a ballroom. He's not planning to leave any day soon. Have you seen the man dance? Why is he building a ballroom? He should be building a rubber room, a padded cell. But
yeah, and so like with all the everything is terrible stuff, with everything being so bad, I got this title, and then I thought, so it feels like the world is ending, and then I thought, well, what if that's true? What if this really is like the end of the world? We had this at the time. We had this disease that we didn't know if we were going to find a vaccine for or be able to deal with in any way. Many governments were terribly irresponsible about how they handled it, including ours. And and that was a bipartisan effort. I should mention so in this kind of existential moment, I thought, okay, it feels like the world is ending. What do I think about that, or what do I believe about that? And so this song kind of became a manifesto, to the degree I've ever had one, of, okay, if the chips are down, or when the chips are down, or whatever, like what really matters, what do we do? And as I often say when I play this song, I'll say I borrowed ideas from people who are smarter than me and wiser than me. It's not
excuse me.
With this song, all by myself. And in fact, something else I say sometimes is that one of my favorite authors, Madeleine L'Engle, used to say that her art was wiser than she was, that she would write stories, that her stories were wiser than she was. She would write her stories and make her art, and she would discover in them things she didn't know.
I agree.
That she couldn't just say on her own. And
I
so
think that's
I feel that way about this song, that like I wrote the song and like worked it through and found some words, and then I was like, oh, those are some good ideas. And I was like, yeah, this is I can get behind this. And the real punchline is love is real and we can prove it. That ultimately it is our relationships with one another and how we treat each other and how we treat strangers and neighbors we haven't met. We see consistently every time there's an acute disaster, or there's a fire, there's a flood, something, humans, wherever they are, we show up and we help our neighbors, whoever they are, whether we voted the same way as they did, whether they treated us badly the week before, you know, we will take care of them. Like, we have that capacity as humans, even though what we see on the news is always highlighting our capacity for cruelty as humans.
An appetite grows on what it feeds. And it kills me that the news is always negative, and even I tended to be negative at the beginning of the show, and you've already uplifted me in a way, because there is so much good in the world, and so much good innately in most of us. I heard somebody speaking the other day, and it was on this subject exactly, and they said, I know that if my car broke down and I knocked on the first door, that person would invite me in, let me use their phone, probably give me a piece of pie and a cup of coffee so I could calm down, and then we would move on, and that person would never ask who I voted for whom I voted. And that's my belief in the American society. It's the wheels turning at the top, the little wheels, and the gears falling beneath it that are grinding to a social halt at our level because of what's happening at their level. So, yeah, I have to be positive too, because I think most Americans, most people in the world are better. We listen to our kinder angels, our better angels, rather than greed or ego, which are the stepping stones to higher power in some way. You know, the stepping stones to higher political power.
Yeah.
I talk a lot. You'll have to forgive me. I ramble on. That's how I think. I think externally.
I'm the same way. I am a long talker. Which is, I think, another thing why songwriting helps me actually, like, like the song's got to end at some point. You can't just like ramble on for 20 minutes, usually. So like, and it was actually one of the things about that song I was talking about. One of the things that really surprised me is how short it was. It only takes like 90 seconds to sing.
I know.
With some repetition too. Like, that's like, okay, here's everything I have to say about this, and it's not that much, which is really out of character for me.
What was good also at one of your concerts was the fact that you had so much audience participation, and it was enthusiastic.
It's called Back Home, and you can sing along on the chorus if you want. Your part goes, goes kind of like up and down the scale, so it goes like this. Oh, I know, I know, I know, I know, we'll get back home. So let's do it again. Oh, I know, I know, I know, I know, we'll get back home. Oh, you got it already, okay. Try it with guitar. Oh, I know, I know, I know, I know, we'll get back home. And we do it again. Oh, I know, I know, I know, I know, we'll get back home. Beautiful, all right.
Enthusiastic audience participation with your songs. It's like when you're in church and you have to repeat after me, or I say this and the congregation says this, the minister says this, the congregation says this. Well, we were singing as loudly as you were and we didn't have a mic. Of course, there were about 80 of us.
It helps to be outnumbered. A lot of that, I lean into the working with a crowd that way. It's become very intentional because I started doing it and it went over really well and people had a really good time doing that. Although it's interesting that you mentioned church because that very much comes from my background in the church and coming up
Let's
in the church.
talk about that.
Not so much from necessarily the liturgy that you were talking about and some of that call response stuff, but there are a lot of musical forms that are much more participatory in a church, and so being steeped in those musical forms coming up, I think, helps and makes me lean towards that. And more than anything, I think back to the years I was in college. I worked every summer at a church camp, at a summer camp. And,
where was that?
It's the camp is no longer open, but it was in South Central Pennsylvania, in Southern York County, and
pretty.
yeah, it's lovely, a lovely part of the country, and the so every summer we would have a group of campers in for a week at a time, and the big thing um, was singing songs around the campfire and doing skits and that sort of thing. But like campfire was like the really kind of central moment of every day. At the end of the day, doing an hour around the campfire every night, and it was mostly singing. And I was the camp counselor who happened to play the guitar, and so I became the one everyone looked to like actually lead the songs and teach the songs and that sort of thing. And if you can get, 30 fifth graders to sing in different harmonies around a campfire, adults are a lot easier after that.
And do you keep in touch with any of the campers, or was it just a 1 week staccato of a relationship?
It was extremely transitory in that, with like just having them a week at a time. There are a handful of people, mostly like through the internet, that I'm still in touch with. A little bit more. Some of the counselors became really good friends over the years, and so we still keep in touch. But it's mostly in the somebody will post a picture from the good old days when we were at camp together, just looking like, like in a high school reunion kind of way.
That's nice. What led you to
Most of
Louisville?
social media now, it's like all of us just like, hey, remember when we knew each other back when? So there's just a lot of that.
Yeah, I had some camp experiences. I was a disaster at camp. Like, Heather, why don't you go and bash this tent peg into the ground and put up your tent? And I, okay. So I took an axe, my father's hatchet, because he said, you should take this to camp. And I was hitting with a dollar, and I went like that, and I still have no hair on the back of my head. It's like, I just scalped myself here. How does that feel? And it's like, I was a disaster. My pack sent me to another pack. We don't want her anymore. Just, can you take Heather? But then they said, why do you want to take Heather? You'll know. It's like, and then my parents had to come and pick me up because I was always injured. I was such a spaz. But camp was so much fun, and whoever led us during those times, I was in awe of them, and I was in awe of campfire singing. I guess that was my favorite part of the day, other than getting stitched up or laid out or rescued.
I'm noticing more and more. We're even doing here in Louisville. I've gotten involved with some people who are doing events where it is just about, hey, let's get together and sing some songs together, and that experience as humans, and I think especially COVID really made us aware of this, like the isolation that we were forced into. And particularly the group singing turned out to be like one of the most dangerous things we could do with this disease, with an airborne disease.
But you were happy when you were doing it. It's like happiness can push away
it was, yeah. And after a while, we learned that like, all these church choirs are becoming, vectors of the disease. Maybe we should stop doing this. But it meant that like live music and a lot of our gathering together in churches and other places where we in society come together and sing together, we lost all that.
Yeah.
And so I think since then, we haven't quite, we have not just simply returned to what things were like before COVID. Lots of industries and patterns of our lives are different. And one of the things that still feels like we're really lacking is our spaces to sing together. And I have a suspicion that a lot of people, when they say they like going to see live music, that part of what they mean by that is that they get to sing along. Because if you're going to see an act who is famous and all their songs, the audience will sing the songs along. If they've got a hit, then the audience all knows it. And what's different about me is that I have this camp experience, and so even though I'm not famous and nobody's heard my songs, I know how to teach my songs to people during the concert. And so I'm able to create some of that sing-along experience, even though you've never heard my songs before.
Oh, actually, you say you're not famous, and I can't believe that's a true thing. Maybe you aren't yet. Has any bigger musician seen you in action or offered to sing your songs? because that was big in the 60s. A lot of great songs were sung by the others, were sung by
Yeah.
Baez and Dylan. And Chris Christopherson was a great writer, but he would sing a few of his songs, but, he marketed his music to people who were bigger in the movement. And your songs have to get out there. I don't care how you do it. It would be wonderful if it was all you, but in order to get the words heard and the passion felt through your music, anybody watching this who is like megastar, please contact Matthew Black, Matthew Black on YouTube, Matt Black as a human off to the side, and Mike Kelby, my artistic director of this show, who will interject and edit this so that our audience gets the best of you.
Great.
And all your little information, and anybody out there watching this, either on YouTube or with NEK-TV, if you know anybody or can connect this young man with someone who can put him on the map big time, the world needs to hear, this country needs to hear his music sung with passion. So
That's very kind of you. Thank you.
it's
It is.
understated.
I'll tell you, the whole landscape since the era you mentioned in the 60s and all that, like the one of the things that has happened, I mean, the internet has just disrupted everything and the way we do everything, even this, that we can that I can do an interview on screen from home.
Yeah, and you're in Louisville. For people who don't know, Matt is in Louisville, Kentucky, and a heck of a red state,
Indeed.
a heck of a beautiful state. And I don't know how you ended up there from Pennsylvania and other places. What took you down there?
I spent most of. I came up in Pennsylvania. My father actually was a pastor and was one that moved around. So we lived, growing up, I lived in Pennsylvania and California and New York State. And after college, ended up in Chicago for most of my adult life, for about 16 years. And I came to Louisville as part of my transition, and basically said, if I'm going to try to be an independent musician, the money is not going to be good right away. So I need to find a cheaper place to live. So some of that was, some of choosing Louisville was about cost of living. It's one of the more affordable cities in the U.S. And also to have a central location, because it was during COVID when I made the shift, but I thought maybe someday live music is going to come back, and it has. And when that happens, I should be more centrally located in the country so that it's easier to get to other cities and tour. And I didn't think touring was going to be a very large part of my work this early on in the career, but I think in part because of what we were talking about with being a very interactive performer who gets the audience singing along. Live music is one of the things that's working best for me. It's where I get the
You're very natural,
and people are really responding to the live show.
Well, I was watching you naturally because I was filming you during the show you did here. Pardon me for interrupting. And at the beginning, you were, on stage, and it was all you. And then all of a sudden, it's like this twinkle. And you said, by the way, you're in this song. You're all. It wasn't, would you mind singing with me? It's like, and guess what you're doing? And we all did, and it was a blast. And you gave us, and the things you gave us to sing were totally easy to follow. Mm-hmm. And repetitive, and we crescendoed every time we would sing a verse. And that was self-empowering, too. I was on a flight from New York, I guess, to somewhere in California, San Fran, but I had about 20 kids who came on. All the boys were perfectly groomed with their power ties, and they really looked great with their skinny suit pants and the pointy shoes. And all the girls are very preppy. They look like they went to Royal George in Montreal, where I went. I'm still preppy. Have no idea how to have flair, and they're all very preppy. And they all got on, and they were gorgeous people, So I thought, well, maybe they're a choir. I don't know. So I went after service. I went up and I said, "Hey, why are all of you together? What are you doing?" We all just applied to various financial institutions for internships. And I said, "You're kidding. What school do you go to?" "Berkeley." "Why?" And do you have any idea of the history of your country, of your college during the 60s, during the protest movement? It was ground zero for protest music. It was ground zero for the intelligence of the protest movement at that point. And this is not, my generation was the protest generation, although I was in Canada and wasn't allowed to protest anything. It was not until I moved to the States that I knew that I could actually write an editorial and sign my name without my dad getting upset. So there was my time, and then my children are in their 40s. So these children would have been in their early 20s when I met them on the plane. So that's two generations, a sandwiched, my children's generation sandwiched into theirs. They had no clue about the Berkeley protests. They all wanted to, I said, "What do you want to be when you graduate?" "Well, we're going to have a hedge fund. We're going to run a hedge fund. We're going to do this. We're going to do that." Not one of them was plugged into the political situation because they were above it in their minds. And they want to be one of the 1%. And we all were 1% of something. I'm sure in some vast measuring cup, I'm 1% of something that's out there, but just not what is expected if you're in power. And so when I saw the Dylan movie, I burst into tears at the end. I could not stop crying. And I had walked to the theater, and a friend of mine had to drive me home because she says, "You're too upset to walk home, Heather, and you're going to walk off the sidewalk." But I made a video after that saying, "Where are the singers? Where is the music that changed a country? Where is the music? Where's the power? Where's the youth?" And then there's Jesse Wells, and there's you. And when I saw you in person, I was so encouraged, because if the spirit's willing, the body will follow. And you're just one of the spirits in this country, and the body of the country, if they listen, will follow.
Well, thank you. And thank you for putting me in the same sentence as Jesse Wells. I have a lot of respect for what he's doing out there. And there are a lot more. I think one of the things, we were talking earlier about that there are some fundamental shifts in how our society functions now, and the internet's a huge part of that. And part of what has happened with music and in many other sectors, I've heard many people usually complaining that there is not a unified
movement.
There's not a unified media anymore. And people are will famously and nostalgically reminisce about Walter Cronkite, and we had one person who told us the news and it wasn't biased, and I wasn't around, so I don't know, but my guess is it was biased, and it wasn't, the good old days are never as good as we remember them. But there was a more unified media, and the only way to be a musician of any kind of stature in those days was to get a recording contract with a big media recording company that could afford a studio. And part of what's changed is that we've made the equipment has evolved so that if you know what you're doing, you can record good sounding things with a much cheaper investment than you could 50 years ago. And then also the channels of distribution, there are social media sites that we haven't even heard of, and this is where I feel old. I've noticed I am right on the edge of kind of a digital native line where I am older than all the people who kind of grew up with the internet. I was a teenager when the internet showed up. And so even though I was an IT professional, I always felt like I was a dinosaur and a little bit behind. And so there are all these places where people can get heard and be discovered and found, and usually you're bigger on one platform than another. And
So you're saying it's diluted. You're saying
I'm
that
sorry?
it's diluted. You're saying it's diluted but powerful.
It's diffuse.
That's right.
There's not just one thing. And so there are lots of people out there making noise in all kinds of different ways and reaching audiences in all kinds of different ways. And in some ways it's really exciting because anybody can broadcast themselves and there are opportunities to be heard and get your message out there. And it's also frustrating because the world is just saturated with lots of people writing great songs for, I mean, even just music, even if you think just about music. There are so many great musicians writing great music, and a lot of them are doing good political commentary in their songs and good social justice stuff.
But they're not on my
But it's
algorithm.
a lot harder to find than it was because,
Yeah.
you know, and part of that's what you said before. We don't quite have Peter, Paul, and Mary and Joan Baez and Bob Dylan all singing each other's songs.
And
or
performing
everyone
on
just singing
tour
Bob Dylan
together,
songs.
you know, on tour together. What a powerhouse on that bus.
Yeah.
It would be a fly. And I'm going to touch on a subject that's extremely important to me, and that's my Leonard Cohen history.
Great.
I did contact Mr. Crowley out in California, who had spent so much time. He considered Leonard Cohen one of his best friends. And when I wrote my poem, Homage to Leonard Cohen, and put it on Facebook, my friend in California, Mr. Crowley, contacted me and said, Heather, I didn't know that's how you felt. And had I known, you could have been with him in my backyard at any time. This is a picture of his chair. And I constantly missed Leonard Cohen. I went looking for him in Greece. I lived in Montreal. And the pain in his poetry, the questioning, the intelligent questioning, the admitting that he didn't know anything, but he wanted to. It was a hunger. It was like an overpowering jaws trying to bring it into his life, figuring out what to do. As a Jew being raised in Montreal with church bells ringing everywhere, and then I had the same kind of experience, questioning always, which is why I think I'm a poet. But because Leonard Cohen could say it a million times better than I, didn't mean I didn't feel exactly that way. And so it's been a constant in my life to reach that state of spiritual nirvana where I actually understand what I feel and can put it in words. He put my angst on paper and in music. And you caught him in your song. It's going to play during this show. And I did send it to Mr. Crowley, the link. I haven't heard from him, but with any luck, you and he will meet someday, because you deserve to meet Leonard Cohen's good friend. A great guy in his own right. Teacher of the Year in America is how I met him, just after his Good Morning America experience. And we exchanged and we became pen pals, sort of. But you two have to talk to each other at some point, because you missed nothing when you sang about Leonard Cohen.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
I appreciated the music. I was jumping out of my seat going, yes, yes, yes. Why couldn't I say that? Because I'm not you.
This song is called The Day That Leonard Cohen Died. Hope you like it. The sun didn't shine on the day that Leonard Cohen died. There was no music played, we just sat down and cried. No Dixieland parade, no stars in the sky. No sins washed away, the rivers all were dry. Nothing's been the same since Leonard Cohen died. The curtain in the temple was torn right down in two. His children's hands were gentle as they laid him in the tomb. We may try to wear his mantle, but we can't carry the tune. We may follow his example if we dare to seek the truth. It's more than we can handle. What are we gonna do? I sought prayer and meditation in the room I found upstairs. Our mother of tribulation did not answer my prayers. I called Jesus from the station, but couldn't meet him there. The prophets of every nation, they all cut off their hair. Oh God, why have you forsaken in our hour of despair? A man got up from his table, dressed himself in white. He killed his brother Abel, and he felt justified. He proudly wore the label his enemies despised. The Lord sent down his angels, they all were shot on sight. The judges on the payroll called it suicide. Oh God, send down your mercy for all our sins and pride. We're hungry and we're thirsty for justice we denied. We've been repeating history, we've been on the wrong side. Oh God of grace and mystery, do you hear us when we cry? Seems like you're not listening since Leonard Cohen died.
Thank you for that.
The Leonard Cohen song, part of, I've only a couple times have I really set out to write a song trying to emulate a different artist. And the Leonard Cohen song was one of that, because I often say when I introduce it, you know, I realized right away I was going to write a song about Leonard Cohen because I was so sad when the news came that he had died.
You died on my birthday.
Yeah, and and so I was like, well, if I'm going to write a song about Leonard Cohen, maybe I should try to write a song like a Leonard Cohen song.
Yeah.
And immediately, like, it's like, well, that's a wonderful idea because he's a famously celebrated songwriter.
Poet.
Like, and he's a songwriter. We all love Leonard Cohen. And I wasn't like a huge fan. I knew his hits. I didn't like, and I still have not really explored his deep catalog.
I have. I've got his poetry, and you just pick it up and read any page.
Yeah, and which, I mean, it's always challenging with somebody that prolific. But his most famous songs are just superb works, and they're celebrated and covered over and over for good reason. And so you know, just thinking like, well, what is it? What if I try to write a song and try to sound like I'm Leonard Cohen, not just by singing in a low register, but in the way he writes, and you know, to use religious imagery, to have kind of an angsty view of the world, and I think importantly, not to try to just make it all sound, put a ribbon on it and make it sound better or hopeful or anything, but to just like stay in the honesty of, boy, I'm sad. Is to be like really oversimplistic about it, and boy, I got a better song than I would have written if I were trying to write like myself. By trying to write like Leonard Cohen, I got a much better song.
I've always called him my muse,
Mm.
but he's my muse up here, and I'm down here going, "Hey, muse, I'm going to say something that is 1/millionth of the power you just spit out naturally." But every time he spit out a song, a poem, it was painful.
Mm.
Everything, it's like he turned himself inside out. He pulled his stomach up and put it out there, all his entrails out there. And those were his words.
Yeah.
And you were so great. And that's why I said, I've got to interview this man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here with us today on NEK-TV and YouTube, because how often do I get a chance to talk to somebody who understands a man who I've cherished all my life? From the first time I sat around a bonfire with my friend Shirley May, Diane May, Jeff Packard, Cheryl Grawl, and sang Suzanne.
I mean,
You know, that was...
it's not fair that was one of his first.
It was, yeah. One of his
Like,
first.
We would all be more confident as artists, I think, if we had Suzanne as our first work or something like that good.
Yeah. And he'd already been writing a lot of poetry about the questions he had when he could hear the church bells in Montreal. And, you know, I grew up with church bells ringing in my ears. I don't have tinnitus. I live in Montreal, or tinnitus, or however they call it. The ringing in the ears. No, I'm just a Montrealer. And he grew up with that, and post-Holocaust, post-World War II. And when he was really forming his mentality and his thought processes. And I'm not positive about this, but he may have been on the spectrum. I'm not sure. If he was, it was a gift to the nation. It was a gift to the world, because that kind of honing in and like a pit bull holding onto an idea and shaking it till it was either dead or completely digested. How many people can do that?
Yeah.
You've got a chance, my dear. You've got a chance. You've already tasted that way of writing music. I could hear it in the words. I could see it in your actions on stage. The passion you have comes across. And I'm not flattering you. I'm just telling you, we need you. We need you today.
Well, thank you. I feel the same way about so many other artists, and part of in my best moments, it's a tricky thing to how we feel about our own work, but but in my best moments, I think about, like, oh, this person over here, like, my life would be diminished if they hadn't written that song of theirs that I love, or if they hadn't written that poem that I love. That the way, and ultimately, it's why I'm a songwriter, is because I was so taken as a kid with great songs.
May I have a few examples of those, please?
What?
A few examples would be nice of your
Oh dear.
mentors.
Well, I mean, I was raised on the Beatles and ABBA and the Eagles and Neil Diamond and everything my parents loved, mostly. And my dad came up in the very much in the 60s with the Beatles. And also some folk, Peter, Paul and Mary, Cat Stevens. Discovering
Cat
Cat Stevens in my dad's record collection was a really pivotal moment for me.
I love Cat Stevens. Oh, and his whole history is amazing. How he gave all of his financial material possessions away and became a Muslim, and
himself, right.
he's still a Muslim.
He's a powerful philanthropist and activist in his own right, and always, even before, his dramatic conversion to Islam, that shook the world. He was already a pop songwriter exploring ideas around ethics and spirituality.
Very much so. Very much. I've got Tea for a Tillerman. I think I'll go home, and if my record player can be cranked up, I'll try and listen to it when I get home.
Yeah.
Speaking of getting home, I've just been given a sign that we only have a few minutes left.
Great.
I hope I haven't talked too much in this interview, but it's great talking with you. What would you like to leave us with today?
Oh my. I really appreciate what we've been talking about. I think the importance of music in our lives. I think so much of my own experience and what I'm thinking about as an artist is like, how do we get through this? The news is terrible every day, and it seems like, as we were saying, it seems like it's getting worse. And so like so much of it is just like, how do we get through? And art is a critical way for us to get through. I hope that my songs help some people with that project of like, how do we do one more day? But also like, it's both for me, it is other people's art that gets me through, and it is the creating of art that gets me through. That like, it is the way that I make sense of the world for myself, and usually they're songs that are not great, but the writing of the songs helps me get through the day, and to be part of the project of getting to know my neighbors better, working on what does justice look like in my own city and what's going on here and locally, and how do we take care of each other in these desperate times. That's really the thing that I find central and is becoming central to the songs I'm trying to write, but also like the life that I'm trying to live, and just So I think it is something I need to constantly remind myself of how important creativity and art is to that project.
You are so right, and that's why during any kind of cultural revolution, the first thing to be offed would be the artist, the intelligentsia, and then the artists are usually quite often sent off to their own little next lives. Here's to love. Here's to unconditional love. Here's to forgiveness. Here's to acceptance. And here's to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Matt Black. You're welcome. Matt Black, a wonderful guest on NEK-TV and YouTube. Life is good. I personally do believe that life is good. And if we're going through any kind of a tough time now, nationally and internationally, remember who you are. Remember your genetic code. Remember the genetic makeup. Remember every part of your ancestry. And know that you wouldn't have arrived at this moment in time without a lot of kind people helping your ancestors and your family along the way. So please be kind to one another. Unconditional love means acceptance. And with any luck, we'll all come out of whatever's happening now stronger and more respectful of unconditional love. Listen to Matt Black's music. You'll see it here where Kelby puts it, so you can find it. And hopefully you'll see some of the show that Matt did in Newport, Vermont, on my show. Thanks for watching Life is Good. Thanks to our wonderful guest, Matt. Thanks, Matt. See you next week.